Okay, so last time we discussed the point of sale functional aspect of IntelliCab, but to recap, point of sale is going to integrate or interface with GSL for the retrieval of prescriptions from the IntelliCab cabinet. Um, the cashier, depending on parameters, um, will enter the MRN at the beginning of the transaction. They should be directed to the RX notes screen if the view notes parameter is enabled. Once they've viewed and acknowledged those notes, then they'll be directed to the RX profile screen in the event that the IntelliCab parameter is enabled. So the user, and I'm going fast, so the MRN screen, right? This one's existing. It was in release 7. So they enter the MRN, they enter next. POS does a call to get the prescription notes from the TX fill and EVOW call. As you can see here, here's our prescription notes. Now, if the notes are not present here, but there's a new consult and there's a notification, then the prescription will display on the screen. So it's more or less kind of a prescription notification screen. They see that in EPIM, so even if there's no notes here, they're still going to have to acknowledge that that a consult's required and that there's some notifications. The user can select all the notes by doing F2 all notes, or they can checkbox each note, or they can arrow down to select all the notes. The Enter Next button will only be enabled once all notes are acknowledged. So when they hit Enter Next, they're directed to their profile screen. The profile screen, they'll be able to go back to the view notes in case they missed something or the customer had a question. They can select all will call notes and all will call RXs, and all will call RXs means all only for that pharmacy. So if Lakeview has a prescription here in will call and it shows here, and the cashier hits all will call note RXs, it will only select the 2 that are for that pharmacy. When the user hits Enter Next, the GSL application will come into the foreground and tell the user, hey, please go to certain location to retrieve these prescriptions. So if the prescriptions are normal size, they're going to be in the cabinet, and it'll probably display the cabinet as well as the bin location in the cabinet. If it's overstock, then they will tell them to go to overstock, and if it's refrigerator, then it'll say go to refrigerator. When they retrieve something from the IntelliCab cabinet, then POS will come back into focus and should be on the sell item screen. If they retrieve something from the overstock shelf or the refrigerator, then the cashier is going to have to do an Alt Tab to bring POS back into focus. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So when I'm at the sell item screen, it's going to be blank. Even though I've selected the prescriptions here, POS doesn't know that you're ready to sell them till you scan them. So once you scan them, then POS will acknowledge and we'll have those ready. And you'll see them on the screen once you scan. Now when the cashier is ready to complete the transaction and they hit tender, POS is going to check to make sure that the 2 that you requested to be retrieved were actually scanned into the application. If they weren't, then the cashier is going to get a notification that says, hey, a prescription was retrieved from IntelliCab system, however the RX file was not scanned. It will give the cashier the option to move forward to complete the tender option screen or move back to the sell item screen. So if they forgot to scan it and they're like, oh wait, the customer wants it, then they can press enter to return to the sell item screen. If they don't want it and they don't need to scan it, then they press continue to move on. and they'll be responsible for recoupling that prescription or RTSing that prescription in ePIMS.
How about, manually adding the TX number?
Manual, so when they're scanning a prescription, the scan is basically a manual. It's a keyboard wedge. It's reading it as you manually keyed it, but it's just doing it faster because you scan the barcode. So it doesn't matter if you scan it or manually key it. It's the same thing. POS will recognize it as it's been scanned.
Understood.
Yeah. And then once the POS sale is complete, POS will send a message back over to GSL to say, hey, these prescriptions have been sold. And it doesn't matter if they've been pulled or retrieved from IntelliCab, POS will still send it. So if you have a prescription that hasn't been coupled in GSL, you scan it, point of sale is going to send a note over to GSL. So GSL knows that, hey, prescription 24711054-592 has been sold and won't let anybody try to do anything with it in their application. It's gone. Do you have any questions on this one?
No. Yeah, I got it. Just, trying to relate in with the real time. So as soon as police complete, the prescriptions goes to the, IntelliCab server, and then they do the coupling part. And once the PV is completed only, we do see the prescriptions on the POS thing. So when we fetch the prescriptions, that is where we'll know that whether it has been coupled or not coupled, and based on that, again, the pharmacist can take an action of the couple of the recoupling part.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
POS doesn't know. POS only
Yes,
cares about will
POS
call.
will not have information. That's what. POS will not have an information, because as soon as PV is complete, that is the only thing POS can do. But rest, it is like, once we get the, see the IntelliCab response, based on that we'll come to know, and then IntelliCab team has to take an action on that, like, okay, what is the next step when they see the request from the POS.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where error notifications come in. So, and that one's going to be a little bit more fun. So, if we're done with point of sale, let me jump over. I'm going to use the CO or central office ALSD, but central office and back office parameters are going to be the same. The only difference is how it's distributed, and I think you pretty much understand that. If it's from CO, it goes to the store. BO, it could go to all registers, one register. Okay. So we're going to have a couple of different parameters. We're going to have one for the view notes parameter. We're going to have one for IntelliCab. And then the view notes is also going to have a subset of parameters. So if each of these parameters are enabled, and the prescription has one of these flags, then that should display on the RX note screen. If these are disabled and the prescription has a flag, then POS should not display it. So if there's an emergency fill flag, but we have this one disabled, then I wouldn't expect to see that notice on the RX note screen.
Do we have any master parameter that can control all these parameters when I turn off the IntelliCab?
So I think I understand your question. If my view notes parameter is disabled, then you won't have to worry about this. Yeah. So that these can be set to yes, no, whatever. If this is set to no, you won't ever see the RX note screen. If this is set to yes,
and the view notes,
then you could define these.
Okay. And the view notes parameter is applicable irrespective of the store has IntelliCab enabled or disabled.
It's totally separate. So if IntelliCab store if IntelliCab store is enabled, it doesn't matter. It's still going to do this first. It just knows that if it's enabled, then it goes to the next. It goes to the RX profile screen.
Yeah, clear. So this is an independent parameter. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's two parameters in here MD ordered OTC text and patient admitted alert text. So we can make those say whatever we want them to say because we have a free.
MD ordered OTC. MD ordered OTC. I know that is an order that comes out of the Health Connect and where we choose a respective OTC item.
Yep.
When we say the patient admitted alert text, so are we talking about the inpatient concept? There MRN will have a patient has admitted alert in the EPS, and that is the information we are expecting on the POS side as well.
So we're gonna get a patient admitted tag in our prescription, right? And then this patient admitted alert text, we can change that. So we know that this came through, but we could change this to member admitted alert. Or hey, members in the hospital. We don't have, this is the flag, and then this is the text that we want to say.
Yeah. So yeah, basically our input data should be like a member that has been admitted to the hospital.
Yeah, whatever. If we want to say it more politely, we can.
Correct. That's for inpatient.
So easy off caps or non-safety cap notification will be addressed. I have it here. There's been some go-backs where currently non-safety caps are included in signature cap events.
Easy off cap and the non-safety cap, when it really comes into picture in the real time. Only the signature capture events, or is it tied to with the drug as well? I believe it was tied with the drug as well.
It's tied to the drug. You get a non-safety cap in the TXFill and TXquery. We're going to try to make this available here under notification. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Under notifications. Oh, that's ARC's profile. Under notifications, so I have it here, so that's where it should really display. I've yet to see it there though. So when you're testing, make sure you test that out. And find out when it'll be available, but yeah. So we'll have it under notifications. If they want it someplace else, then they have to do a new user story. Okay?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, sure. And one, I think I don't want to relate it, but it's coming up. Just one base concept. Maybe it is related or unrelated. We'll separate it out. So about the Medgate and the PPA, right? In real time, it gets print out of post the PV or the post the pill. Some of the documents will be that, post the pill, and some of the documents after the post PV. Now that is the message that is coming out to the EPS part. Okay, and on the EPPA part also, we do have an option to just print it out or else email. That's what we are talking about. So with this introduction, right? So in the POS side, do we have an ability to print, or we are talking about what are the documents that got printed out prior to the POS itself?
It's prior to POS, so we don't care.
Prior to POS.
POS only cares
so it's only
about
the handling
receipt.
Yeah, it's only the handling part. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, you can move on.
Okay. So we've created a new group called IntelliCab Group, and in IntelliCab Group you'll have your view notes, your IntelliCab store, all your other notes to find. Excuse me, that'll be available in BO, CO, and at the client level. So if you search by group IntelliCab, then you'll see this list.
Sure.
And
do we have any limitation on the notes that is getting displayed on the POS? Or it will transition to the phase 1 and phase 2?
So let me go back to this.
Yeah,
Whoops.
if you see, right, suppose, if I choose a number, that has all this notes information, and then, on the cell, currently, right, we just, see like, okay, on page 1 only display like 4 or 5 items. But it may not happen, but I'm just a little bit curious, if I put all the notes and then send it across.
If I have multiple prescriptions, and I'm going to scroll down, right? But if I have multiple notes in there, then I'm assuming we're going to follow whatever guideline we followed for the member profile screen or the message screen where it only allows up to so many characters, right?
Yeah, maybe, if we come to know, right, maybe like, we can document or something like that. Just my thought,
You're such a
POS limitations
troublemaker.
kind of thing. Uh,
Um,
no, Tracy,
do you, do you know what limitations we have for the notes on the screen?
No, no limitation means.
How many characters for
Oh,
each column, each prescription column?
I have to check, but I think not sure. Let me check that one. How much we can
Okay.
push
And
there.
at this point, Ajit, we are not changing any limitation on these, characters. So whatever the POS currently has, that is what's gonna,
Yeah,
show up.
yeah. It is
The,
whatever database limit.
yeah,
It is showing up accordingly.
DB limit. Okay, fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can let me know that one, just for
Mhm.
information. That's fine. Yeah.
That way you don't open a defect if you're at 251 and we only allow 250.
Yeah, now you don't accept a defect, right?
Yeah, no, we don't. No.
Working as designed.
Yeah, it's working. It's WAD.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Before I move forward, I want to let you know that
Mm.
this I just updated, and I think I CC'd you on it. So this used to say price, but per our demo yesterday with business, they wanted to say patient pay, and that matches what's
Okay.
in EPIM. So that's what you'll see there.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So
It's not the patient pay, it is the price, right? That's what we are going to change.
well, no,
Because
it used to
patient,
be
when we say,
price, but now we're changing it to patient pay.
okay, so when we say it's a patient pay, means it is like, it's a copay. Can I consider in that way?
It's a copay, it's non-member rate, it's a
Yeah.
non-formulary, whatever yeah, that's why they put
So post
patient
the
pay.
discount. Yeah,
Yeah,
post the discounts. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And that's only on this RX profile screen. When you get to the sell item screen, it's a different story. Whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any questions about parameters?
No, parameters wise, I'm good. When we just, go through in detail for test cases, we'll come to know. But for now, it is pretty much direct. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. So let's talk about the fun one. So can you see the error notification ALSD yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Do you see the flowchart?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
This
Okay.
flowchart I have seen. Yeah.
So there's going to be 3 different areas that we're going to touch with this error notification. We're going to have error notifications if the MRN is not found in POS, EPIMS, or GSL. If the RX notes are not found in the TX fill request, or if there's no RXs, there's going to be at least 4 different GSL errors. So I tried my hardest to put this in an organized form, but I'm sure there's always a better way. So here what I've done is in your acceptance criteria, which I think will help you, user not found or not logged in, and that's for GSL. So if POS sends a request to GSL and they've realized that the user hasn't logged in for the day and or does not have credentials to log into the GSL application, then an error message is going to be sent back to point of sale, and point of sale is going to display that and say, hey, you either need to log into GSL or talk to your manager because something's gone wrong. If the medical record number or RX isn't found in GSL, so for example, you have a prescription that's ready for will call, it hasn't been coupled in the GSL application, so when we query GSL, then we're going to display the response we get that says, hey, I don't have this, so It's just a note, and we're going to display what MRN and what prescription. So if there's multiple MRNs, then multiple MRNs and prescriptions will display. And I'll show you the screens when we get there. We're going to have a generic GSL error notification screen, and that's this one may be a little harder for you to test. The only reason we have this one here is in the event an unknown response comes back from GSL and we don't know how to handle it, then we're going to display this generic error notification. There's going to be a timeout setting or no response error. So if POS reaches out to GSL application and let's say 20 seconds occur and we haven't received a response, then we'll display an error notification saying, hey, there's no response. We'll and then MRN not found. So if the MRN's not found in POS or EPIMS, then an error notification is going to display and say, hey, MRN 1234 was not found. You know, please validate that you've entered this correctly, and it'll allow the user to move forward. If there's multiple MRNs entered, and the third MRN is the MRN not found, then that screen will only display after the first and second profiles have been reviewed and when we get to the third one. So we won't so there's an order on when we'll display it. If prescription's not found, then an error notification will display. So we've reached out to EPIMS and EPIMS says, hey, this prescription's not found, then we're going to display an error. If multiple MRNs or requests have been sent, we're going to display it when the what prescription is owned by what MRN. So if the third MRN was entered, the first MRN profile displays the RX, displays an RX selection is made, then the second MRN is not found, an error notification will occur. This server offline, if the POS application is trying to reach out to the POS server and there's no response, then we're going to display an error notification. And if POS reaches out for RX notes associated to MRN and for some reason the POS database was unable to save those notes, then you'll see an error notification. Any questions before I move on to the screen examples so we can talk about them a little more detailed? Okay.
I'm good, Tracy.
So this screen is MRN or RX not found, and this error notification will display in the event that the MRN and or RX is not found in the GSL application. So what's going to happen is POS has sent a request to GSL and GSL says, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. So POS will display this notification that says the following MRN or will call prescription was not found in the GSL application. And we're going to list out the MRN, the KPRX number, and then we're going to tell the user to press enter to continue. When they press enter to continue, they should advance to the sell item screen. Because POS really is saying, hey, you have this, it's not in GSL, but you can go ahead and sell it. Any questions on that one?
No, Tracy.
Okay. So this is the screen for the user was not found. So we're basically going to display that error, user not found or has not logged into the GSL application. And then we just say contact your manager if you're still experiencing an issue. When they press enter to continue, they'll go to the sell item screen because we want them to still have the ability to sell. This is the generic error notification, and we're basically just saying the following GSL application error has occurred. We're going to insert the error notification there, and we're going to tell them to press enter. They should advance to the sell item screen. Or the next, yeah, I think we're okay. Now, if GSL times out, then again, we're going to, basically it's similar response error notification that we get with Tempest. POS application failed to receive a response from GSL. Please ensure that the GSL application is launched on the workstation. From my understanding, the GSL application has to be launched on the workstation. The user doesn't have to log in, but it has to be listening. Any questions so far? Okay.
Nope.
Server offline. This one's for POS. So the POS application is offline to the POS server and is unable to retrieve the customer's prescription profile. So we're basically saying, hey, you're not going to be able to see the notes if the notes parameter is enabled, but press enter to continue and we'll take you to the sell item screen. And then the next one is, hey, I know that the notes are not available, so I'm going to tell you that the POS application is unable to retrieve the prescription notes associated to the MRN listed. Please use the ePIMS application to review the prescription notes, and we list the MRN there. Press enter to continue takes them to the RX profile screen. If the RX profile screen is disabled, then they'll go to the sell item screen. If a prescription is not found in POS or ePIMS, then we're going to say that there's no prescriptions found for the MRN entered, and please validate that an order has been placed and is in the ePIMS workflow. So we've recognized that you've entered this MRN, but we can't find anything, so you need to do some research on your own. If the MRN is not found, so I've entered an MRN in the MRN out of region screen. I've entered next. If this MRN is not found, then POS is going to display an error. It says, hey, the MRN was not found in the ePIMS application. Please validate the medical record number. When we press enter, we're going to be directed to the sell item screen, and this MRN should still transfer over and be there as the MRN button box. And then, any questions on that? So let's talk about your transaction workflow, which I'm updating currently. And I'll give you an updated version. If you For your error notifications, they probably start around 21. So from number 21 down, these are your error notifications. And you should really follow these because they've got your parameters outlined. They have what happens and where the trigger is. So where you would see the error notification. So any GSL error notification is going to happen after the RX has been selected from the RX profile screen. Whereas here, your RX is not found. You're going to see that after you hit MRN, with multiple MRNs after the next profile, depending on where that error occurs. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. Now, even though you don't have questions today, if you have questions later, you can always reach out to me.
Yeah, sure, Tracy.